Good afternoon, welcome to this great event. Welcome, Mr. Ambassador, Pete Hoekstra, the American ambassador to the Netherlands. It's great to have you here, but you've been in the Netherlands for a few years now. What is like the best memory you have here?
You know, I was strapped on to a Dutch paratrooper and we jumped out at 10,000 feet. We landed smoothly and I had so much fun I did it a second time.
Where did you land?
Somewhere near Arnhem. It was one of the landing fields, for Operation Market Garden. And so the Dutch did the commemoration phenomenally. We also did, on a more serious note, in 2019, we hosted the Global Entrepreneurial Summit right here in the Netherlands. We had 2,000 people from around the world come here and celebrate entrepreneurship. It was the first time it was held on the continent of Europe. It's sponsored by the State Department. It was a cooperative effort between the Dutch and the US, and it was a phenomenal event. And then this did not happen in the Netherlands, but it only happened because of two Dutch guys who donated the D-Day flag, a flag that flew on one of the first landing craft at Normandy and guided the other landing craft in. And they bought this flag and they donated it back to America. And we had a ceremony with the president, with the prime minister, with Bert and Theo at the White House. So lots of good memories.
Great memories. And you are actually from Holland, Michigan.
Yes.
You represent the area in Congress. And Holland, Michigan is sort of a stilled version, a version back in time of the old.
No. Holland has some of the leading manufacturers, innovative. They are world leaders in the businesses that they are in. And sure, we have tulip time, but to say that it is, we have a windmill,
bakery.
You have a bakkerij, yeah, and it's very much it's a great community. It's not locked into the past. I think recently it was identified as one of the most digitized places, maybe in Michigan, maybe the country. It's full of entrepreneurs. It's full of energy. It's not locked in time.
Though you have all the symbols of the past, the windmills and that sort of thing, is there anything from the Netherlands as you know it now you're going to take back? You're going to change any of the traditions you have in Holland?
No, ik ga nog oliebollen maken. We do croquettes. My kids make croquettes. I do the oliebollen. They make lots of the Dutch treats. We eat ettensoep. I don't think we found anything new that we can do. So but we know the Dutch traditions and we really enjoy them and we celebrate them.
And it's also an area quite a little bit more conservative than we are, as you found out. And I guess one of our students has a question. Is Rick Hersenvoort, and Rick joins us with a question, I guess.
Yes, thank you. The Netherlands is quite a liberal country, especially for American standards. What is it like being a conservative American in the Netherlands?
It's fine. The job of an American ambassador is to promote America's agenda. And it's not a conservative or a liberal agenda as such. It's about foreign policy and economic development and those kinds of things. And so even though I may be conservative personally, politically, it's something we really don't. An ambassador doesn't address in the country where they are assigned to serve. It's fine.
So it has been.
It's fine. I mean, we enjoy it here. It's not like you go out and you say, "Oh man, get me back home." What are these people thinking? No, we very much enjoy it. We know that the Dutch are by and large, like to think of themselves as a more progressive or liberal country. Sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not.
You've been more visible than any other American ambassador to the Netherlands I can remember.
Yeah, but you're young, so you probably don't remember that many.
I'm not good. Yeah, well, so why is that? Why did you choose to be?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be, my professional career is I'm a marketing guy. So I spend a lot of time talking to customers, and we sold through dealer networks. So I spent a lot of time talking to customers and dealers and those types of things. Then I was a politician. So I spent a lot of time talking to voters, businesses, and those types of things. And I find it very interesting here to not only present America's agenda to, your government officials, which is my primary job, but also to present America's agenda to the Dutch people. Because what I find with much of the media is they sure don't present America's agenda.
What do they miss?
Oh, they say America first. America has to be first in everything. And it's kind of like, the president when he's in a negotiation, he's going to negotiate on America's behalf. Guess what? Your prime minister, when he negotiates for the Dutch, he's negotiating for the Dutch people first. He maybe doesn't say it exactly that way, but every government leader negotiates with trying to get the best deal for their country and their people. And here it has been explained that, well, America does this at the expense of everybody else. That's not true.
It does seem like the tone has changed, though. America first. We didn't hear that before.
Maybe the tone has changed because we're very serious about making sure that we treat Europe fairly. All right. So we love NATO. We think the Dutch ought to love NATO as well. So that they ought to contribute.
Don't they love NATO?
Well, they may love it, but they're sure not willing to pay for it. All right. So, they say, yeah, we love NATO, but, oh, you want us to pay for it? Ooh, that's, by sign. We don't, we can't do that. So, we've been, but they promised in 2014 that they would pay for NATO. But again, this is what people say about America first. They say, you're going to leave NATO. And we say, no, we want a strong NATO. And the only way that we're going to have a strong NATO to defend us against the threats that are out there internationally is if everybody pays their share and we develop the capabilities to make sure that NATO is still the rock solid organization it's been for 70 years. For 70 years, it has brought peace and prosperity to Europe. And America is still very committed to it. Our question is, why are there countries in Europe that are not as committed to NATO as what the United States is?
Question hasn't been answered if I sort of hear what you say.
Not so far.
Any of our students want to weigh in on this? The other thing, you've been so visible here. You ran into a little bit of trouble with Forum for Democratie. They were at the embassy.
I didn't run into trouble with Forum. I ran into trouble with a media outlet that totally misrepresented what happened.
Do you regret that they were even there, or did you?
No, it's my job to interact with political parties. We send the same invitation to all the political parties. So this year alone, we've had 4 town hall meetings, either at the embassy or at my residence. We've had, I would guess, 20 video teleconferences with different parts of different political parties. We've done lots of things.
Which parties, for instance? Which parties?
Well, I just did VVD Day last week, the youth party. I think I've done CDA. I did a town hall meeting with Sven Koopmans, VVD Day. I've done a couple of events with Martijn van Helmert in Maastricht, the CDA. I spent 3/4 of a day with Dink in Schiedam.
No parties on the left.
What's that?
No parties on the left so far, or are they there too?
What's Dink?
Yeah, that's actually hard to define.
Okay,
I went to
PDA. I was invited to their convention. I went.
How was it?
It was fine. I'm a parliamentarian at heart. That's what I did for 18 years. I love interacting with your parliamentarians. And what you find is when you interact with them, that with almost every party, you meet with GroenLinks, D66. They are very concerned about China. They are very concerned about Chinese surveillance and those types of things. They are, they're almost at exactly the same place where the United States is. And I actually think if we had the opportunity, we could develop a great environmental program with discussions between this administration and people like GroenLinks.
I see some of our students nodding along, or maybe they have some. Fenna, would you like to weigh in on this? This is Fenna Milbauer, one of the students here.
She's an American and Dutch.
That's true. And I've also spoken to a lot of other American expats who are living here in the Netherlands. And quite a few of them were actually upset about the event that happened with Forum, because they had seen it as an endorsement of the party politics. Could you understand why they felt that way?
No, I could understand why from the presentation by the media. And I would be upset. And if the presentation by the media had been accurate, I probably wouldn't be the ambassador here anymore. Ambassadors don't get into endorsing political parties in the country where they serve. MFA looked at it. They looked at, they said, hey, what's going on? So we showed them the invitation. Number one, we showed them the invitations that we send to all the political parties. Okay. Hey, and I think we've sent this similar format out 3 times in the last 18 months. Pete's more than willing to engage with you. You design what you'd like to do. So one suggests a town hall meeting. One suggests come to our convention. One says spend a day with us walking through our community. One says come and meet with our business people in the area that I'm from. And so we let them design it. In this case, FADA said we'd like to do a town hall meeting, and they were going to come to the residence, but with COVID, the residence wasn't big enough, so we said, well, let's do it at the embassy. And like I said, we've done that with at least 3 other parties this year, and and we do not endorse political parties.
And just out of curiosity, are there certain types of events that you're not allowed to attend? If a political party says come for a dinner or some sort of other event, is there some sort of restriction on what you are and are not allowed to attend?
I'm limited by country. There's certain events that types of events I can't do with Taiwan. I don't know if there's any government things that Omar is here with me. What other country can I not interact with?
North Korea would be hard.
North Korea would be hard, even though the president has met with North Korea, but North Korea for me would
Iran?
Iran would be on that list. I could not. But, like I said, I went to the convention for PVDA. They said, Pete, we'd love to have you come. So I went. Forum for Democracy, they said, Pete, we'd love to have you come. We'd like you to speak. And so I spoke. And it's like, wow, there's 2,000 to 3,000 people there. And it gives me the opportunity to 2,000 or 3,000 people who love politics, otherwise they wouldn't spend a day going to a convention, and to tell them America's story. What an opportunity. And so, I get energy from interacting with people. And I love learning about the agendas of each of the political parties, which is part of my job, to report back to Washington, here's the agenda of the different parties, because you also have an election coming up.
We do.
And, so they'll want to know, they'll want an idea of who are the players are, and those kinds of things, so that once the election takes place, very quickly they can say, okay, such and such a party turned out and did a really nice, or had a success in the election. What is this going to mean for the policies that the Dutch are going to engage in for somewhere between one day and the next 4 years, right? Because a government could last a day and a government could last 4 years.
A day? It could.
It could. Theoretically, it could. But most likely it would last longer than that. But I think Rutte's first government lasted, 2 years?
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly how long,
Yeah.
but one of them also went quickly. But yes, longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this came up from Fenna's question. Fenna, you have anything else you want to ask on this? Yeah, so we're talking about elections. We're a week away from the election in the United States. Depending on the outcome, that might be the end of your time here.
It could be.
Are you packing any boxes yet? Are they?
No, actually, I'm going on Friday. I will be going on an airplane, and I will be going home for the month of November. Usually, Diane and I will go back 3 times during the year. We'll go in the spring, we'll go in the summer, and then we'll go either for Thanksgiving or Christmas. But this year, I haven't been able to travel home to see my kids or grandkids. So we're going to take it. We're going to do it all in one block. So I'll go home for November. I will be home for the election, and then we will be home for Thanksgiving, and we will celebrate Thanksgiving as a family.
We'll come back to voting and how you're going to vote later on. But first, the election is only being a week away. We're going to look at a clip of one of the debates to sort of measure the temperature in your home country.
How you doing, man? I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Go.
the wrong
Go,
night
Joe,
at the
go.
wrong time.
Listen, did you use the word smart? You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Vote now.
You're gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why would
because
you answer that
because
question?
the question is the question is
Justice,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who is
shut
on,
up, man?
listen, who is on your list?
You folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse hold.
You ran for Congress. Did you ever debate like this? Is this a debate technique you like to use?
Well, I think the first debate was probably not that instructive to undecided voters as to giving them the information as to who they might want to vote for. I've had ugly debates. All right.
They were not watched by many millions like this one.
No, it's a congressional election. It's only 700,000 people instead of 300 and some million people that you're going to represent.
What was the most ugly thing you encountered in a debate? What was the thing you really didn't like encountering?
Oh, I had an opponent that just stood up and started telling all kinds of lies, and it's like, where is this coming from? So I actually walked over to him and stood right next to his podium and said, you're absolutely lying. Where are you coming up with this stuff?
Did it work, this technique?
I don't know. I won.
Okay, so a week away from the election, and we just saw the debate. I mean, this clip was interesting because nothing really happens, no substance, no issues. But what are to you the most important issues in this election?
Well, for me,
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm really concerned about, I've got 3 kids. 2 of them have not been, and then I've got a daughter-in-law. So 3 out of the 4 of them have not been severely impacted personally in terms of the jobs that they have and the work that they have. I have a daughter who works in the hospitality industry, and that thing has been wiped out. And so she has, her jobs were wiped out. So I'm very, very concerned about who is the best candidate with the best program to get America's economy moving again. And then, of course, resolving the whole issue of COVID. I mean, the two go hand in hand. Once you get a strategy, an effective strategy to put COVID behind us, then the economy with the right kind of stimulus will come back. But how do we get people back to work?
COVID and the economy, 2 topics, I guess, then. From
Sure,
this,
yeah.
Going hand in hand. We have one clip on COVID. Actually, the president saying something about COVID, and I think the students want to weigh in a little bit too about this. So let's see what we got here.
People are tired of COVID. I have the biggest rallies I've ever had, and we have COVID. People are saying, whatever, just leave us alone. They're tired of it. People are tired of hearing Fauci and all these idiots, these people that have gotten it wrong. Fauci's a nice guy. He's been here for 500 years. He's a disaster. I mean, this guy's, if I listened to him, we'd have 500,000 deaths.
And, okay, so
So this was the U.S. president commenting on Corona, but on Dr. Fauci as well. Back in Michigan, actually, this weekend was a record number of cases back in Michigan. You talked about your family, about folks you know there, and you're going to visit. How concerned are you when it comes to COVID?
Well, last week, my sister and my brother-in-law were both diagnosed as COVID positive. They're both around 70 years old. They have underlying conditions.
How are they doing?
Well, on Saturday when I talked, my brother-in-law is asymptomatic, so has no symptoms. My sister on Saturday, and I told her, I said, you look awful. She had no appetite. She'd lost her taste. She was tired, and you could tell that she'd had a rough 3-4 days. And but one of the physicians that she works with prescribed some medication, and I called her on Sunday, and she said, Pete, or my brother-in-law said, Pete, what are you doing? You're out of quarantine, because I had to be in quarantine for 10 days last week. And I said, no, my quarantine ended on Saturday, so I'm out. And my sister yelled from the background. She said, no, he got off of quarantine as soon as Diane left town, because Diane flew back to the States on Friday.
That's your wife, right?
My wife, yes. And so I said, hey, Grace, you must be feeling better. You've got your sense of humor back. And Sunday morning, she said, I'm almost symptom-free. My appetite is back. My taste is back. I slept great last night. And their doctor had prescribed some steroids for them. And so it's like, wow, hallelujah. But, the thing with COVID, everybody responds differently. My brother-in-law has no symptoms. She gets, she, I think, was pretty sick. And for them, steroids worked. With others, we see it. They end up in intensive care. They end up on a respirator and all of that.
So far, good news.
So far, good. Yeah, I felt, I just talked to her a few minutes ago, and I said, you still feeling good? Because people said, well, sometimes steroids, they mask the symptoms. Yeah. They don't fix the underlying problem. And she said, no, I'm feeling great. So good news.
That's great news. And now I think we have actually Maaike wants to ask a question. Maaike is
I'm here. The other side. Do you think Trump will lose some older voters because of his kind of laid back approach on Corona?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't think it's a laid back approach. I mean, if you take a look at what the president has done, it wasn't laid back to close travel coming in from China early on. He got a lot of flack for doing that. He implemented the War Powers Act, which allowed the government to go to manufacturers. And this is one that we work very closely on with Philips, because Philips makes all of their respirators and ventilators. They make them all in the U.S. And they wanted, we needed more respirators. The world needed more respirators. And I talked to them. They said, Pete, we need the War Powers Act so that we can go to our suppliers, and for the parts that we need, we can go to them and say, hey, look, we've been designated a critical industry. The first components that you make have to come to us. And the president did that. The president has put in place what he calls Operation Warp Speed, which is, providing a lot of money to the pharmaceutical companies to get to a vaccine as quickly as possible, to test the different protocols to treat people, and all of these types of things. I mean, I was on a TV program yesterday, and everybody's talking about, we haven't done this, or this hasn't happened. In reality, I think when people look back at this, one of the things that they will talk about is how much the world, because a lot of the stuff we do in cooperation with the Dutch. You have Johnson & Johnson, which is an American company, but their vaccine development, much of it is going on here in the Netherlands at Janssen, and so all the things that we've gotten accomplished in the last 9 months, there's a good chance by the end of the year we will have a vaccine approved, meaning it's gone through the tests. For some of these, they've already been ramping up production. A lot of these vaccines, most vaccines typically will take 4 to 5 years. Now, it may not be the most effective or the best vaccine that's ever been developed, but it may make a huge dent into the impact of COVID. Maybe, I don't know the numbers, but let's say it's half as effective as other vaccines. Still, you got it done in a year and you're going to be able to benefit a lot of people. And at the same time, the development of better vaccines will continue each and every day. This is initially about getting COVID under control so that we can get back to close to normal.
Do you feel like it's under control at the moment? It
Well,
doesn't seem to be.
It's better. I mean, the number of cases here in the Netherlands clearly are high. I was just reading a story about France where.
But back in the United States, do you feel like that's moving in the right direction?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you take a look at it. I mean, you compare it. I mean, I think we're at somewhere around 70, 80,000 cases a day.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but you know what the equivalent is for the Dutch? If you took the 10,000 that you have here every day, you'd be at 200,000. Sure. If you had the same ratio as what we have in the United States.
But do you feel like you're at the right point in the United States?
No, we'd like to have it solved, okay? But, just like in the Netherlands, what we're seeing today is even though cases are spiking, you're not to the point where your intensive care is as overwhelmed as it was this spring. We're getting better. The death rates are going down.
So there's some positive news. That's what.
Not some. There's a lot of positive news. This has happened in 8 or 9 months. This is unprecedented, the progress that has been made.
Let's see. Let's have a look at our student here, Rick. When it comes to COVID, you want to weigh in, I suppose?
It seems like face masks are becoming a political statement, and primarily Democrats are emphasizing the importance of wearing a mask. So we've seen actually President Trump criticizing or Vice President Biden for wearing a mask on stage at the first or second debate. And we also see many attendees of Republican rallies not wearing a mask at all. So I was wondering, how do you see this, and does the masks becoming a political statement contribute something to the situation in the States?
Well, I mean, it's again, I'm not in the States, but I see it here in the Netherlands, where masks are kind of a political issue. I mean, in the last 3 weekends, we were in Venlo. Diane and I were in Venlo on a Sunday afternoon, and the streets were packed. Hardly any face masks. Okay. A week and a half ago, we were in Dordrecht on Sunday. Streets were packed. Hardly any masks. This past Saturday, I was in Maassluis. I went there on my bike and just rode around a little bit. And obviously it's a smaller town, so they're not as busy as Venlo and Dordrecht. Again, but you don't see many masks. And so I think, one of the things, and I think this is what frustrates politicians about the advice that they're getting from the medical profession, is there's no clear answers. Here, if I've been in contact with somebody for 10 minutes within 6 feet who tests positive for COVID, I have to quarantine for 10 days.
But isn't the big difference that politicians don't make fun of somebody not wearing a mask? That's a big difference when it comes to the United States.
Well, everybody has, I'm not going to get into the style of Joe Biden. Joe Biden came on to I can't talk politics.
But would you like somebody not to make fun of a mask? Is that what
Well, not if he's standing 20 feet away from me and there's no one within 20 feet of him, and he's wearing a mask. It'd be like, why are you wearing a mask? I mean, you and I are 6 feet apart, and I'm not sitting here thinking, why is he not wearing a mask? And if there's somebody sitting up way in the corner by themselves and they're wearing a mask, I might think, why are they wearing a mask?
Just to check, we're both feeling fine, right? Let's stick into the if he's still.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a meeting in the Rose Garden at the White House, mainly Republicans. Nobody was wearing a mask, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's not a requirement.
Don't you think it should be? Your personal.
What's that?
Your personal opinion.
I don't know. Okay, I don't study it. It's not my job to make up a decision who wears masks when, how far apart, and all those kinds of things. It's an issue that your cabinet is struggling with each and every day. Should we make masks mandatory? Where do we make masks mandatory? They know a whole lot more about it. The president and governors around the states know a lot more about wearing masks. I may have my personal opinion, but it will not be nearly as informed as the decisions that they're making. Personally, when I drive and I have Dutch security, when I drive, the Dutch security folks, they're wearing their mask. They've told me I don't have to wear my mask.
We can
but
see
I
your
do
mask,
wear,
actually.
But I do wear mine.
Your mask has some interesting comments on it. We actually want to.
Not comments. One comment. It's
vote,
very
right?
simple. We have an election in 8 days. We want people to vote. Very simple. Now, I don't know how many people in America are going to see this, but and I probably won't wear it in. I probably won't wear it in February or March, because then people will say that I'm making a political statement and that I might be endorsing a party that would benefit from a greater voter turnout than not. So I'll put it
That
away.
statement brings us to the next segment, because every vote counts, and it definitely does in Michigan. We have a little picture of Michigan back in 2016, the election results in Michigan, and this is the picture actually. So it was only about 11,000 votes plus for Trump. It was a razor-thin margin back in Michigan. It's again an important state in this election. How do you see it back there? What's the atmosphere there?
Everybody expects it to be a close race. There are, and we have in the state we have two very important races. We have the race who wins the electoral vote, so that's Trump versus Biden. There's also a senator up for re-election, so there's a Senate seat that's up. Who controls the Senate is a big deal. So,
and that's a very close race at this point as well.
That is a very close race, and winning a Senate seat, we haven't won a Senate seat and Republicans haven't won a Senate seat in Michigan since 1994.
I mean,
so this would be a big deal.
And you tried to be a senator.
I tried to be a senator. That was a bad idea.
That was back in 2012. So it has
don't remind me.
Okay, so it's going to be close in Michigan. About 3 million people requested mail-in ballots already, and about 20,000 did not receive them as of yet. I think mail-in ballots and the safety of mail-in ballots is interesting to our students as well. Anybody want to weigh in on this topic? Fenna wants to. Yes, go ahead.
So as you know, I'm an American living abroad. So I voted actually in September, mail-in ballot. And there's been a record amount of early voting this year. I read yesterday, I think it was upwards of 58 million mail-in or early voting ballots were cast. But there has also been this conversation, a lot has been spurred by President Trump's comments on mail-in ballots and election fraud. And I was wondering if you find those comments to actually be sound. Do you find them justified that more mail-in ballots mean higher rates of election fraud?
What I think, this is why I love making comparisons, because you see the same thing here, where, Michigan, I talk about Michigan. We have an early voting process. We have absentee balloting and all of those kinds of things. And if Michigan had decided to change their voting, 2 or 3 months ago and said, okay, we're going to go do all mail-in. Inherently, mail-in is not more full of fraud. But if you haven't been fine tuning and developed the system to do mail-in voting, like Oregon does mail-in voting, okay? And they've developed it over years, they've tested it and all of that, and it's probably very accurate. But if you're a state that's going to change your voting pattern or your voting mechanisms, and you decide to do it 3 months before the election, that's where the potential for inaccuracies and fraud come in, and that the systems haven't gone through the testing. I think you saw this with the voting for the leadership of CDA, right? Where they said, hey, we're not going to be able to have a convention. We're not going to be able to vote in the traditional way. And so they did a computer voting system. And then they, after they did it, they had the ethical hacker come out and say, hey, I was able to hack in and I was able to change votes. So they said, okay, we're going to have a rerun election. That's what I think people are worried about, is that have the states had the time, the energy, and the testing to validate whatever new that they're going to put in for COVID.
But a mail-in ballot is definitely different than an online ballot. If you say email your ballot, it's different than actually having a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but does that argument that?
I mean, one of the guys that works for me, he voted online, last week, I think. And again, but the state has developed the procedures to do that and to do a double validity test or whatever to make sure that the person that is voting, that they think is voting, is actually the person that is voting. And so, he felt fully comfortable that his state has this in place and said, Pete, I've done this before. So it's kind of like, okay. So it's a matter of have the systems been validated and tested so that you have a high degree of confidence that it's going to work. It's not that inherently one is worse than the other. Have they been tested? Yeah.
Not COVID related, but do you think that maybe it would be useful to test postal voting for maybe in the future, so that people who are older, who are not able to go to the voting stations, that they still can vote for their party that they want themselves?
Yeah, like Michigan, I think you automatically qualify for absentee voting if you're a certain age, and I don't know if that's 62 or 65, or maybe it's lower than that. So we used to have, you had to have a reason why you were going to be voting absentee. You were going to be out of town or whatever. But now there are certain categories of people that automatically qualify for absentee ballots, and I think it's easier to qualify for absentee. So states are doing that. I mean, the objective is to get as many registered eligible voters to the polls as possible.
But still, Mr. Ambassador, you were talking about the mail-in votes, and some states have had them for a while. I think you mentioned Oregon.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of troubles, no major fraud and such. Would that not be reassuring for the other states implementing a system like that right now?
Not if they're going to do it in 3 months.
Can you do it? You can do many things in 3 months.
You can't do an app for Corona in 3 months.
But an app and a paper ballot, I mean.
Excuse me, an app, a balloting has to be 100%, almost 100% accurate. You can't just go out and say, "Oh, we're going to do mail-in ballots this time and hope that it works." You have to have integrity into the system. And whether it's not only mail-in, if you're going to do computer or whatever, you have to rigorously test that so that people have faith in the system. You can't come back a week after the election and have an ethical hacker come in and say, you guys put in this, you put in this computer voting system, and I was able to go in and change votes. What are you going to do then?
But won't it scare voters who want to mail in the ballot? They think
it's not just mail-in. If Oregon, I fully trust the system in Oregon. It's mail-in. This is not about mail-in. This is about having confidence in the system that's been developed.
Are you confident in the system?
I am confident in Michigan's system. If Michigan had said 3 months ago, we're going to go 100% mail-in, I would not have had confidence in it because I don't believe they could have pulled it off in 3 months.
They cannot. They can pull off so many things in Michigan.
No, this is not saying, oh, we're going to go from a system that we fine-tuned over the last 10, 20, 30 years that we all trust, and we're going to do all mail-in, and we're going to have 3 months, and we're not going to be able to go through rigorous testing. No, I would not have had confidence in that system.
That's a clear answer. I think Rick has one more question on this, do you? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So there has been a lot of lack of clarity surrounding the mail-in ballots and also quite some controversy. Do you think it will undermine the functionality of the democracy in the United States?
Well, I don't know how many states, I don't know what every state has done in terms of mail-in ballots. The question will come is for states who have changed their process dramatically in the last couple of 3 months or whatever to facilitate COVID. And when those ballots are cast and counted, will the states have clear evidence that the new system, the new systems that they put in place have integrity? And if they do, we're fine. If you go back and you've implemented new systems and this is the first time that you use them, and then all of a sudden you find out that there were a bunch of glitches, then yeah, those state officials are going to have a lot of explaining to do to their voters to convince them that the results were actually valid. It's not about mail-in. This is about making sure that the system accurately counts the votes that are being cast. That's it.
Generally speaking, the American system is quite safe.
Generally speaking, because it's been fine-tuned.
Should we not be saying that way more than that there's a risk with this new thing?
Well, I don't know if it's a new thing. I don't know how many have changed. Okay, but yeah, that's the wonderful thing about the American system.
Well, many millions are voting by mail now, so that's that number is up.
No, be careful, get it accurate. Okay, there have been huge increases in the number of people who are voted early.
Yes,
and they can do this through a number of different ways. They can go to a building, and they can vote.
Both are up, mail-in and in person.
Great, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But if the mail-in votes are being cast in the states that have always allowed for mail-in voting, okay, like in Michigan, when I vote absentee, okay, what I can do is I can go to my township, who organizes the election. I can go to their building.
To your polling place, basically.
No, polling places, that's on election day. I can go to the office for my township, for my door.
Yeah,
my door.
to register.
No, I'm already registered. And I can say, I'm not going to be here on election day. And this is what I do quite often. I go in, and so they give it to me, I fill it out, and I hand it back to them immediately. Okay, so that's one way I can vote absentee. When I'm in the Netherlands, I can call them, and I can say, I'd like you to mail me my ballot. And they will mail me my ballot. And then I will fill it out and I can mail it back. That's a mail-in ballot for Michigan. And I have a high degree of confidence that in Michigan that's worked because we've been doing that probably for 20 years. We know how to do that. And I would expect that this year, because people are saying, I don't want to go to the polling place and I don't want to mix with a place that may see 3,000 people today, I'm going to do a mail-in ballot. So they're calling the township, and the township will send them their ballot, and I'm confident it will work.
Confident in the system. So when it comes to the actual outcome, we might have changed in leadership, and I think Maaike wants to ask a question when it comes to this. Right, Maaike, go ahead.
Do you think if Trump will be re-elected, this presidential term will be more difficult because he needs to find maybe perfect balance between the functioning of the economy, but also protecting the public from the virus? Do you think that will be more difficult? That this term will be more difficult for him?
No, I mean, it's a struggle that we've had in the U.S. government for the last 8, 9 months. How do you balance economic interest, with public safety interest, and it's the debate and the discussion that's gone on, in so many countries around the world. And, I'm hoping that by the end of this year that we will have a lot more tools in our bag to manage the COVID outbreak, so that we really can focus on getting people back to work and getting the economy moving. I think we've done at least 3 or 4, packages, one really big package already for a stimulus package to help businesses and individuals. And it's clear that, maybe this week, maybe, the few weeks right after the election, most likely Congress will pass another bill that the president will sign into law that will put in somewhere between another 1.5 and 2 trillion dollars into the U.S. economy. A huge amounts of spending.
Okay, thank you.
Oliver, our student in the back, you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
Yes. If Biden were to win the elections, what do you think that says about the American people, regardless of COVID? Just what does it say about the American people? Because very few presidents have not been elected, have had one-term mandates.
Well, I don't know. I remember George Bush in '92 didn't get reelected. Obviously, you're right.
The last couple of decades, most have had 2 terms.
Well, yeah. And those patterns break. Like I said, Bush didn't. And Trump won very close. I mean, our elections are very close. And so, I'm actually quite surprised that we have that many presidents who are reelected all the time. Because it only takes Trump lost the popular vote, won the electoral vote. And I think in his election, I think it's less than 200,000 votes, and maybe even under 100,000, in critical states. If 6,000 people had voted differently in Michigan, then Hillary Clinton would have won. It's probably slightly more than that in Wisconsin.
Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan together were about 77,000 different
votes.
states.
Yeah, and you would have seen the shift of 16 in Michigan, maybe 10 or 12 in Pennsylvania.
20 in Pennsylvania.
In Wisconsin, how many? 20? So that would be 36. That would have been a shift of 46 electoral votes, and I don't know what the exact numbers were, but that would have
been the election, if I'm not mistaken.
It would have been very close. So it's 70,000 votes shifting in a total of 3 states, and so
the entire direction of the country, just 3 states.
What's that?
3 states could have just changed.
3 states could have changed it. Yeah. So I don't think it says a swing. Elections in America recently have been very, very close.
So Oliver, does this answer your question? Do you have any more questions on this or anything else you want?
But like, what kind of if Biden were to win, then what do you think that would mean? Like, what direction would Americans would like to take? That maybe Trump, like, would they like to take some different direction of Trump's politics?
Well, a couple of things. If it's a blowout win with a popular vote for either one of the candidates, then you would say, wow, if Trump wins, massively with the electoral vote and massively with the public vote, you could say, okay, America clearly has embraced the vision and the direction of Donald Trump. If it's the other way around, you would say, wow, they've embraced the vision and the policies of Joe Biden. My guess, it's going to be a relatively close election, which will leave the country, again, politically quite divided without saying there's a massively clear mandate. I think regardless of the next president will probably have to be a good deal maker to get things through Congress, because there's a possibility they'll be divided with, not necessarily having the same party controlling the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
And about this division, do you think that Trump divided the country?
Well, the country was divided before the president came.
Yes, but was it as divided, let's say, in 2012 during the Obama, like, or 2008 or 2012? Was it as divided?
I mean, the country has over the last, I lived through the impeachment of Bill Clinton. I was in Congress with the impeachment of Bill Clinton. I was there for the 2004 election, right after the Iraq War. I was there for for 2 of the Obama years. And if anyone wants to describe those as saying America was in harmony and we weren't divided, I'd say take a closer look. Okay, there were some real. I mean, you go back through 2004, 2005, 2006.
Mr. Ambassador,
Those were there was a lot of division in the country.
but not so much violence as the summer, for instance. It's a
Well, you can't blame the violence on the president.
but the
Okay.
climate was different. That's what
The violence in the may have been it started in Minneapolis. With Floyd. My daughter lives in Minneapolis. That was not a political statement. It was totally, much of it was,
What was it?
well, some would say a political protest. Others would say riots. There's a lot of destruction of property and those types of things. I think that for a number of people that I know in Minnesota, they would have described it as riots, unacceptable behavior, the destruction of personal property, not within what we would describe as normal civil disobedience or discourse trying to impact public policy. There are those that would disagree with me, and I'm sure that there were people involved in protesting what went on with Floyd, very, very concerned about what they perceived as police brutality and trying to do everything that they could to fix that system and to try to bring about corrective behavior. So it was a whole range of activities and emotions that I think we saw.
Were you surprised to see this back in your own country?
Oh, I was surprised. I was disappointed. It hurt. You don't like to see this in your own country.
Let's see. I think our students want to add a little bit here and there. Fenna, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, so as you've been saying, the country is very pulverized right now because of how the last 4 years have been, but even before that, we've always been very divided. And I'm wondering how you personally feel about if the election results, either way that they go, there's a lot of people in the US who are going to be very angry. And we've seen that there's been militias, both on the left and on the right side, who have said that they would be prepared to almost go to war based off of the election results. Do you think that this is something that would actually happen, regardless of who gets elected?
I don't think so. I hope not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, what you want to see is, American politics is hardball. You've probably seen it's winner take all.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens after the election is that Americans accept the result, and then we move forward and we go through until the next election.
Do you think
but
Trump,
we do it in a constructive way.
Do you think Trump is going to accept the results? Because he said that he's not sure if he will.
I don't think no president has an option.
Mm.
Okay, on January 20 at noon, the president's term ends. There's not a requirement in the Constitution that says the president's term only ends when he signs a letter of recognition or resignation and says, "I'm leaving." It ends. Constitutionally, the president's term ends on that date. And at that time. And so at that point, whoever who's ever in office, they have no constitutional authority, and there's no constitutional requirement for anybody in the government to be listening to them anymore. So, yeah, I expect that whoever wins will be sworn in on January 20 at noon.
So this seems like a smooth end to all of it. Any other questions here? Anybody? Sophie, Maaike, do you want to answer this? Oliver?
I was wondering, do you think if President Trump has handled the situation surrounding Black Lives Matter well, or would there be things in your perspective that he could have done better?
Or that Black lives could have done better? Okay. I mean, I think and I've not watched all of the interactions or activities of that, but it gets into domestic politics and these kinds of things, and you've got two organizations. You've got the Trump organization, and you've got Black Lives that both of them have a political agenda. And defining whether they handled it right or not politically is, between two political organizations is one thing. I think the bigger question is, how will America deal long-term with what's been exposed as an open wound? Is we still haven't achieved where we want to be in terms of race relations. We still have work to do.
And do you think President Trump will be able to lay some sort of foundation or help build that foundation for racial relations or racial equality?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that this president has tried to do, and people will say that's what happened with this economy, is that the groups that have benefited significantly and better than they ever have before are African Americans, Hispanics, and those kinds of things. And again, we'll see on election day, but there are those that are saying that for a Republican, the president may get historically high levels of voting support from these minority groups, much more than Republicans have gotten in modern history. We'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see. The election only a week away. So, and we got one more question here, Oliver.
Trump also said himself that he thinks that he says that he has done more for the Black community than any other president. Do you have any examples of what he did?
Well, I think sure. I think you could take it. I think what the president is referencing, historic low unemployment rates for African Americans. So he would take you through the economic benefits that they have felt from this growing economy, as saying these have significantly helped the African American community. The president, and again with Congress, he passed a criminal justice reform bill, which many believe that historically had targeted minority groups in an unfair way, sentencing them to significant prison terms for what some would define as not significant criminal offenses. And, this was the criminal justice reform had been on the agenda. Previous presidents had talked about it. It did not, it didn't pass during the previous administration. This president was actually took a position that historically many Republicans would not have supported, and encouraged the passage of the bill through Congress, and he signed it into law. He supported it, where I think previous Republican presidents would not have.
Oliver, does it answer your question?
Yeah.
And with this, we're getting close to the hour we spent together, and that has been a great hour when it's up to me. I think the students are very happy too, so thank you so much for this. And one last question before we leave. Let's say the president loses on November 3rd. Are we ever going to see you back in politics?
No. You may see me back into, working in a future administration or something if asked. But am I going to have my name back on the ballot?
And running for office?
Running for office, no. No, I've done that. I served 18 years in Congress. Here in the Netherlands, if you have a parliamentarian that's been there for 18 years, they would say, oh man, he'd been there a long time.
It's kind of rare to be.
It's kind of rare. And so no, it was a wonderful opportunity. Public service is it's a great job, but it's also, your family pays a tremendous price. So I loved having the opportunity, but I've never looked back and said, I want to do that again. So I think you never say never, but I think it would be highly, 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 highly unlikely.
There are many Harleys in there. So.
Many, highly unlikely that you would find my name back on a ballot.
And with that answer, I think, on behalf of the students, we want to thank you so much for being here, Mr. Ambassador. Thanks for this.
Thank you.
Great
Great questions. Thank you for being here. Awesome.